For the greater security of humanity's expanding civilization, the Galactic Security Act has been enacted with immediate effect. Any dissemination of unverified claims regarding government officials or security operations is now classified as an act of terrorism. I switched off the holoscreen, unable to watch anymore. 3 days. It had taken them just 3 days to start dismantling everything we'd fought for. They're not even trying to be subtle anymore, Nova said, her voice tight with anger. She brought up another screen showing arrest footage. Look at this. They're charging people with interplanetary sedition just for sharing our evidence. Whiskers twitched nervously as his paws flew over his console. It's worse than that. They're systematically erasing everything, social media, news archives, even private communications. Our footage of their attack is being replaced with doctored versions showing us as the aggressors. In the interest of colonial security, the news anchor's voice droned from another screen, experts have confirmed that recent allegations against government officials were fabricated by neo-dog extremists and their sympathizers. Citizens are reminded that spreading such disinformation threatens the stability of our multi-world society. Fang's massive paw smashed into a nearby table. Fabricated? We have proof! We have their own records! Proof doesn't matter if no one's allowed to see it, I growled. They're using security fears to justify total information control. A priority transmission alert flashed on our main screen. It was Harrison, looking tired but determined. "Rex," he said without preamble, "are you seeing this?" "Hard to miss," I replied. "They're using every trick in the book and writing new ones." Harrison nodded grimly. "They're calling it the Unified Security Initiative. Planetary security, galactic security, colonial security. They're using every variation of security they can think of to justify what amounts to interstellar martial law." "But why are people accepting it?" Nova asked. "They saw the truth with their own eyes." "Because they're scared," Harrison replied. "These bastards have spent years conditioning people to trade freedom for security. Now they're cashing in. Every colony, every settlement. They're all being told that uncontrolled information leads to chaos." Whiskers spoke up from his station. "Colonel, we're getting reports of arrests on Mars, Luna, even the outer colonies. They're calling it a security sweep." Harrison's face hardened. "They're not going to stop. This isn't just about covering up their corruption anymore. They're using this situation to grab power they've always wanted, total control over human civilization wherever it spreads." "So what do we do?" I asked, feeling an unfamiliar sense of helplessness. We were warriors, fighters. But how do you fight an enemy that can make truth itself illegal? "We keep speaking out," Harrison said firmly. "I'm organizing a series of public appearances. People need to hear the truth, even if—" "That's too dangerous," I cut in. "They're calling truth-tellers terrorists now. They'll come after you." Harrison smiled grimly. "Let them try. Some things are worth dying for, Rex. The freedom to speak truth is one of them." As the transmission ended, I looked at my team. We'd faced down alien armadas, corrupt officials, and brutal criminals. But this was different. Our enemies weren't just trying to kill us now. They were trying to erase us, to make the very idea of resistance impossible. "Rex," Nova said softly, "what's our play?" I stared at the screens showing news broadcasts from across human space, all spouting the same lines about security and stability, about how questioning authority threatened humanity's future among the stars. "We fight," I said finally. "But smart. They want to paint us as dangers to security? Fine. Let's show humanity what real threats look like. Let's remind them why dogs have been protecting humans for thousands of years." "And Harrison?" Fong asked. "We watch his back, whether he wants us to or not, because that's what loyal friends do." As we began planning our next move, I couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. Our enemies had shown their true face, not just corrupt officials, but would-be tyrants who would use fear of the future to control humanity's present. The dark days were here, but even in darkness, a dog's loyalty never wavers. and we were about to show them just how dangerous loyal dogs could be. In a landmark ruling expanding the Galactic Security Act, the High Council has declared that harboring or aiding neo-dogs now constitutes a threat to interplanetary security. Citizens are reminded that the stability of human civilization across the stars depends on strict adherence to these new security protocols. The message played on repeat across every channel, every feed, every communication network in human space. But it wasn't the words that chilled me, it was watching their impact. "They're turning everyone who ever helped us into a criminal," Whiskers said, his voice hollow as he monitored the arrests. "The families who hid us during the exile, the doctors who treated our wounded, even the merchants who sold us supplies." Nova's hand clenched into a fist as another alert came in. "They just arrested Dr. Rhett. Remember her, the veterinarian who helped us set up our medical facility? They're charging her with providing aid to potential security threats." The hits kept coming. Every hour brought news of more allies being targeted. The corrupt officials weren't just silencing the truth, they were punishing anyone who had ever dared to help us. A secure transmission cut through our grim monitoring. It was Scar, his cybernetic eye glowing with barely contained rage. "They're shutting down everything," the pirate captain growled. "Our information networks, our safe ports, even our encrypted channels. They're calling it a comprehensive security sweep of colonial space." "How are they finding everything so fast?" Fang asked, his massive frame tense with frustration. "Because they've been planning this," I realized. "Everything. The attack on our sanctuary, the evidence we exposed, they're using it all as justification for powers they've wanted all along." Another alert flashed, this one from a face I hadn't expected to see again. Captain Yara of the freighter Boundless, the ship we'd saved from the slime aliens. "They came for my crew," she reported, her face drawn with worry. "Anyone who spoke about your help, about what really happened that day. They're calling it spreading destabilizing narratives that threaten galactic security. Even the freed fighting pit dogs were being targeted. We received desperate messages from those we'd rescued, now forced into hiding as the authorities labeled them dangerous escaped military assets." "Rex," Nova called out suddenly, her voice urgent. "You need to see this." She brought up footage from a public square on Mars Colony. A group of humans had gathered to protest the new security measures. As we watched, security forces moved in. But these weren't regular police. They moved with the precision of special operators, their uniforms unmarked. "For the safety and security of all colonial citizens," a mechanized voice announced, "this unauthorized gathering has been designated a threat to public order." What followed was brutal efficiency. Protesters disappeared into unmarked vehicles, their names instantly added to lists of potential security risks. "They're not even pretending to follow legal procedures anymore," Whiskers observed, his whiskers drooping. "These new security measures let them do anything they want." A private channel activated, Harrison again, his face grim but determined. "It's getting worse," he said without preamble. "They're pushing through more amendments to the Security Act. Soon they'll be able to detain anyone anywhere in human space just by invoking security concerns." "Colonel," I started, but he cut me off. "I'm not stopping, Rex. Someone has to keep speaking the truth. I'm scheduling more public appearances. The people need to know what's really happening." "They'll kill you," Nova said bluntly. Harrison's smile was tired but firm. "Maybe, but every time they try to silence us, they prove we're telling the truth. Why else would they need such extreme measures?" After the transmission ended, we sat in heavy silence, watching the feeds of more arrests, more lives destroyed for the crime of knowing the truth. "We can't let this stand," Fang growled finally. "We're warriors, not witnesses," I finished for him. "You're right, but we need to be smart about this. They're not just trying to silence the truth. They're trying to prove that everyone who stands with us is a threat to security." "So what do we do?" Whiskers asked. I looked at my team, seeing the same mix of anger and determination I felt. We document everything, I said. Every arrest, every lie, every abuse of power. They think they can erase the truth? Fine. We'll make so many copies, spread them so far, that they'll never find them all. And Harrison? Nova asked. We watch him, whether he wants protection or not, because whatever these people say, whatever laws they pass, we know who the real threats to security are. As we set to work, I caught my reflection in a darkened screen. We were no longer just fighting for justice or recognition. We were fighting for the very right to speak truth in human space. They wanted to make truth illegal? Fine. We'd show them why some words can't be forbidden, why some bonds can't be broken by any law. The dark was getting darker, but we were dogs of war, and we weren't done fighting yet. The real threat to humanity's security isn't the neo-dogs, Harrison's voice rang out across the crowded plaza on Mars Colony. It's the corruption that would use fear to control us, that would silence truth in the name of safety. I watched from the shadows of a maintenance tunnel, my enhanced senses scanning the crowd. Despite our insistence, Harrison had refused protection, saying it would only prove the government's claims about dangerous neo-dogs. He's either the bravest human I've ever met or the most stubborn, Fang growled softly beside me. Both, Nova replied from her position on a nearby rooftop. The crowd's reaction to Harrison's speech was troubling. Where once there would have been cheers of support, now there was mostly hostile muttering. The propaganda was working. These so-called security measures, Harrison continued, undaunted by the growing tension, are nothing but chains wrapped in pretty words. They're using galactic security as an excuse to control not just Earth, but every human settlement among the stars. Traitor, someone shouted from the crowd. Security threat! I felt my hackles rise as I caught the scent of the shouter. There was something off about them, something artificial. Checking the crowd again, I noticed more like them scattered throughout. Whiskers, I subvocalized into our secure comm. Are you seeing this? Already scanning, our tech expert replied from his hidden position. At least 20 individuals showing signs of professional training. They're here to make the crowd turn ugly. On stage, Harrison was hitting his stride. They tell you we need these laws to protect humanity's future in space. But ask yourselves, what kind of future are we protecting if we sacrifice our fundamental rights to get there? More hostile shouts now, clearly coordinated. The planted agitators were doing their job, riling up the genuine civilians around them. Remember the neo-dogs? Harrison's voice rose above the growing chaos. Remember how they fought for us, bled for us. They were created to be humanity's guardians, and now we repay them with persecution, with lies. Rex? Nova's voice was tense in my ear. Movement on the north roof. Someone just changed positions. I scanned the indicated area, my enhanced vision picking out a subtle distortion. I see it. Could be nothing. Could be a shooter, Fang finished grimly. Part of me wanted to rush in, to get Harrison off that stage, but we'd promised to stay hidden, to let him make his stand. More importantly, we couldn't give the authorities what they wanted. Footage of dangerous neo-dogs disrupting a public gathering. The truth can't be silenced, Harrison declared, his voice steady despite the increasingly hostile crowd. No matter how many laws they pass, no matter how many people they arrest, the truth will... A bottle flew from the crowd, missing Harrison's head by inches, then another. The planted agitators were making their move. Security forces incoming, Whiskers reported. But something's wrong. They're not moving to protect Harrison. They're holding back. My blood ran cold as I realized what was happening. They wanted this to turn violent. They wanted Harrison discredited, humiliated, or worse. Nova, I barked. That movement you saw on the north roof. Still there, she confirmed, and now I'm picking up similar patterns on the east and west. They're boxing him in. The crowd was at a breaking point now, the agitators having done their work well. What had started as a peaceful speech was about to become exactly what our enemies wanted, proof that dissenters were dangerous, that more security was needed. This isn't about planetary security or galactic stability. This isn't about planetary security or galactic stability, Harrison shouted over the growing roar. This is about power, about control, about silencing anyone who dares to speak. Rex! Whisker's voice was urgent. Multiple energy signatures converging. Whatever's going to happen, it's happening soon. I made a split-second decision. Nova, maintain overwatch. Fang with me. We're moving closer to the stage. Whiskers, be ready to... A new sound cut through the chaos, a whine of more ships approaching. But these weren't security forces. The design was familiar. Cavalry's here. Scar's gruff voice came through our comm. Sorry we're late. Had to negotiate some flight restrictions. The pirate ship's appearance caused exactly the distraction we needed, drawing all eyes skyward. In the confusion, I caught a glimpse of something that made my fur stand on end. A glint of metal from the north roof, professional, precise. Everything in me screamed to act, to leap onto that stage and protect our ally. But I knew that would only serve our enemy's purpose. They wanted us to show ourselves, to prove that Neodogs were dangerous interventionists who needed to be controlled. So we watched, and we waited, and we documented everything. Because sometimes the hardest part of being a protector is knowing when you can't protect, when the only way to help is to bear witness. As Harrison launched into his final points, I caught the subtle shift in the air that meant something was about to happen. The kind of shift that combat veterans learn to recognize or die. We were about to reach the breaking point, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. And finally, Harrison's voice rang across the plaza, steady despite the hostile crowd. Remember this. Throughout history, those who silence truth have never been on the right side. Never. The tension in the air was unbearable. From my position near the stage, I could smell the fear, the anger, and something else. The cold, professional focus of trained killers. Multiple targets shifting position, Nova reported from her perch. North, east, and west rooftops. These aren't amateurs, Rex. I count 12 professional agitators in the crowd, Whiskers added. They're forming a pattern. They're going to trigger a rush toward the stage. Scar's ship still circled overhead, providing what cover they could, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. The assassins had planned this too well. For thousands of years, Harrison continued, his voice growing stronger, dogs have stood beside humans as protectors, as friends, as family. The Neo-Dogs are the next step in that ancient bond. And if you think about it, what does it say about these so-called leaders that their greatest fear is the very beings created to protect humanity? A surge of movement in the crowd. The planted agitators were making their move, pushing people toward the stage. Security forces remained suspiciously passive. Rex, Fang growled beside me, we have to do something. But we couldn't, not without proving every lie they'd told about us, not without giving them exactly what they wanted. Footage of dangerous Neo-Dogs interfering in human affairs. Harrison raised his voice over the growing chaos. They call it galactic security, but ask yourselves, what are they really securing? Their power, their corruption, their right to movement. Nova's urgent whisper cut through our comms. North roof, shooters taking position. I spotted it, the subtle shift of a stealth field, the glint of a weapon being raised. We were out of time. These people want to control humanity's future among the stars. Harrison's words came faster now, as if he knew what was coming. They want to decide who gets to speak, who gets to think, who gets to... The shot was almost silent, a whisper of advanced technology, designed to kill without drawing attention, but to my enhanced senses it was deafening. Harrison's words cut off mid-sentence. For a moment he just stood there, a look of surprise crossing his face. Then he looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest. No! I couldn't stop the growl that escaped my throat. Around us the crowd erupted into chaos. Exactly as planned. We were moving before conscious thought, our cover blown but no longer caring. Nova was already tracking the shooter, but they were gone, dissolved into the panicked crowd like ghosts. "Multiple vehicles converging," Whiskers reported, his voice tight. "Not medical. They're here to make sure the job is finished." Harrison crumpled to his knees as we reached the stage, blood soaked through his shirt, a through-and-through shot to the chest. Professional, precise, meant to send a message. "Rex," he gasped as I reached him, his eyes focusing on mine. Don't let them silence." His words trailed off as he slumped forward. The plaza had become a scene of carefully orchestrated chaos. Screaming civilians, suspiciously late security forces, and news drones capturing everything. Tomorrow's headlines would call it a tragedy. They'd blame unknown extremists or maybe even try to pin it on us. They'd use it as justification for even tighter security measures, more controls, more silence. But as I stood there on that blood-stained stage, watching Harrison's life pour out onto the cold ground of a Mars colony, I made a silent vow. This wouldn't be the end. This wouldn't be another truth they could bury. The corrupt powers behind this thought they could silence one voice? Fine. We'd give them a chorus they couldn't ignore. But for now, all we could do was watch and wait and hope that the man who had dared to speak truth still had enough life left in him to keep fighting. Above us, Scar's ships continued their patrol, a reminder that we weren't alone. Around us, the carefully orchestrated chaos played out exactly as our enemies had planned. And somewhere in the gathering darkness of space, the real power brokers celebrated another victory in their war on truth. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd silenced another voice of resistance. They were wrong. Because even as Harrison's blood stained the stage, even as their paid crowds screamed in manufactured panic, even as their media prepared to spin this tragedy into justification for more control, they'd forgotten something important. Every martyr for truth creates 1,000 new voices. And we intended to make sure those voices would be heard. If Harrison lived or died, his truth would not be silenced. We would make sure of that. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a like and to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Feel free to comment and share it as well. With all that said, go on and check out the video in the top left. I think you might like it.